Welcome to our viewers here in Vermont, around the country, and around the world. I'm Benjy Renton here reporting to you live from Middlebury, Vermont, here in the election night studio just after 1:20 in the morning on the East Coast. Polls have just closed in Alaska, and we're going to go through some of the key Vermont politics races, including the governor, lieutenant governor, Addison County State Senate race, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Electoral College and what we can expect over the coming hours and days. So let's take a look first at the governor's race. I have a couple of new maps to show for you tonight. We're going to take a look at the presidential election on a Vermont towns. Just to be clear, we have about 92% of towns reporting. These results are unofficial and provisional until they are verified by the Secretary of State, and they have obviously not been verified. So please, these results are provisional, and we will update our maps on the Middlebury campus website at middleburycampus.com, and you can check out our latest maps as we go on through the night. So let's take a look at what we have tonight. So presidential election, as you can see, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris really sweeping the state of Vermont and its 3 electoral votes. A couple of Republican votes for the Trump-Pence ticket up in the Northeast Kingdom, as well as some scattered throughout the state. This is quite expected, and this is very similar to the 2016 map. Let's take a look now at our current standings for Governor Phil Scott. The race has been called according to AP. 233,000 votes to David Zuckerman's 95,000 votes. Molly Gray, the race has been called. Scott Millen has called to concede, and Molly Gray gave her victory speech about an hour ago up in Burlington. Our affiliates at NBC5 have covered it, so you can check out their website for more. Molly Gray winning the vote here with 174,000 to Scott Millen's 146,000. Let's take a little bit of a look. I think this is very interesting, especially to those who are not from Vermont, looking at kind of the election results when you overlap that with the president, because a lot of towns in Vermont, you'll see most of the towns in Vermont actually are voting for that Biden-Harris ticket, but then voting for Phil Scott for governor. Dave Zuckerman picking up a couple of votes in the southeastern part of the state, as well as the city of Burlington. Going to the lieutenant governor, we've talked how this map is quite stratified, and this map is different than the governor's race. Scott Millen picking up of those votes in kind of the northern part of the state, but Molly Gray really sweeping the populous cities of Burlington, Middlebury, and really other places, Brattleboro, all those places in the state. Now looking at the Addison County State Senate race, this map is a little inaccurate because you can vote for 2 candidates. Ruth Hardy and Chris Bray are currently in the lead, and we can show you those tallies in a bit. But this is the candidate who, with the most votes of all the 23 towns here in Addison County. Looking at voter turnout is a really, really interesting thing this year. This is the highest, this is a record turnout, surpassing the 2008 turnout in Vermont of 327,000 votes. We are currently at 340,717 votes in Vermont. That's the latest data from the Vermont Secretary of State's page. You can visit at electionresults.vermont.gov. And you can see that the mean turnout is about 80 or so. The mean turnout's the mean turnout's about 74%. And you can see that through the towns, some really incredible turnout. So thank you all so much for voting. Now we're going to take a little bit of a look at some key races. We're going to start off with the Senate, and then we'll finish off the night here with the presidency. So let's take a look at key races. Over here, we announced in our previous broadcast a flip of the Alabama Senate from incumbent Doug Jones to Republican Tommy Tuberville, as well as a flip in Colorado from Cory Gardner, incumbent, to John Hickenlooper, a Democrat. Some of these other key races up here in Maine, too close to call so far. 54% of the votes reported between Susan Collins and Sarah Gideon, as well as races in Michigan, Montana, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. Georgia will be headed to the special election will be headed to a runoff, which will be held in January. Looking at the presidency, we are looking at 223 confirmed votes per this New York Times count for Joe Biden versus 212 votes for Trump, 103 remaining. Some key states that we're going to look at here, and I'll kind of bring up some of the predictions that I have, and we're also going to look a little bit at some turnouts. We have Nevada with only 7% of the votes in, likely to be a Biden vote, North Carolina likely to be a Trump vote. So those are some of the assumptions that we're making. Then we have Alaska, which is likely to go for Trump. Polls have just closed about 25 minutes ago. And so that is pretty much a safe Republican. We have Arizona. Fox News has called out for Biden. CNN and other networks, including the New York Times here, have not called it yet. So we're holding out for that one, but we're going to assume for Biden in our next model. And then we have Maine. We have another district in Nebraska that we can look at. And then we have these 3 states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So the race for the presidency can come down to the following 5 states: Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So let's take a look at our 270 to win here predictions. So let's assume right now that Arizona is going for Biden, and we're going to put that there. Then we have these kind of, and we'll assume that Maine, all of Maine, let's just put that there, going towards the Democratic ticket. If we assume that Georgia is Republican and is going for Trump, we have these 3 combinations: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Joe Biden needs to win 2 of the 3 states to win the presidency. With Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, he will have 273 electoral votes. With Michigan and Pennsylvania, he will have 279 electoral votes. And with Wisconsin, Michigan, and either all of Maine or the Nebraska 2nd district, he will have exactly 270 votes. Now, if we switch, and we may get some indications that Georgia will be flipping to a Democratic state, then it will only really come down to one of the 2 over here. One of the 3 over here: Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania. So definitely some results to come in. Just some kind of some just turnout data and the votes that we have so far. In Michigan, with around 60% of the vote in, Trump is up 53% to 44%. However, 22% of the vote that is in right now is early voting, and we're expecting about 55% of those votes to be early voting. Early voting tends, at least in Michigan, will tend to be Democratic, so there is some changes that occur there, and that could happen. Officials have said in Michigan that full unofficial results could take until November 6th. Looking here at Pennsylvania, we're about 66% of the vote in, Trump up 56 to 42. About 16% of that vote now is early, and we are expecting about 45%. So there's still some wiggle room in there. So those are the paths that we're looking at, and I think not much will happen right now overnight. We'll be looking at the next couple days for other key results. I just wanted to make one comment that counting all the ballots is not, in contrast to what the president says, counting all the ballots is not stealing the election. There is nothing partisan about that. Just like testing doesn't automatically create COVID-19 cases. An election occurs when all the ballots are counted, and there's nothing partisan about that. And so we will count all the ballots until we have decided the path to 270. So thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. This is the end of tonight's live broadcast. Depending on what we'll have tomorrow, we may have some others, but you can follow me on Twitter at BH Renton for other updates on key races, Vermont politics, as well as the path to the presidency. So thank you all, and have a very good night.